Why do Jews and Arabs keep fighting? Why is there so much conflict, even between Muslim countries? To understand this, we have to go back to two important people in the Bible, Isaac and Ishmael. They were both sons of Abraham. Isaac became the father of the Jewish people, and Ishmael became the father of the Arab and Muslim people. Thousands of years ago, these two brothers had a conflict, and that same struggle continues today between Israel and parts of the Muslim world. But the Bible doesn't just tell us how the conflict began. It also shows how it will one day end. There's a powerful moment in the Bible where Isaac and Ishmael make peace. Some scholars believe this moment is a picture of how the conflict between Jews and Arabs will finally be resolved in the future. Do you know what that moment is? According to the Bible, this story has a deeper meaning. There's an old Jewish idea called Maaseh Avat Simon El Banim, which means the actions of the fathers are signs for their children. In simple words, the lives of people like Isaac and Ishmael aren't just history. They are clues about what will happen to their descendants in the future. Christianity teaches something similar, called typology. This is when stories from the Old Testament are seen as symbols of future events. Even the Apostle Paul used this method. Scholars have used both of these ideas to understand today's conflict between Israel and Muslim nations, and what they found is surprising. Here's why it's important. The story of Isaac and his mother has deep meaning for what's happening in the world today. In the Bible, Sarah represents the people of Israel, while in Muslim tradition, Hagar and her son Ishmael represent the Muslim people. When we look at the story this way, everything begins to make sense. God made a powerful promise to Abraham. I will make you into a great nation, and all people on earth will be blessed through you. But there was one big problem. His wife Sarah couldn't have children. Back then, a woman's value was often based on whether she could give birth, so Sarah felt deep shame. Later, God changed her name to Sarah, meaning princess. But to her, that felt like a cruel joke. How could she be a princess with no child? As she and Abraham grew older, God's promise seemed impossible. In desperation, Sarah told Abraham to have a child with her servant, Hagar, which was a common custom at that time. So Abraham did, and Hagar became pregnant. But soon, tension began. Sarah felt jealous and started treating Hagar badly. Hagar, hurt and humiliated, ran away into the desert. There, alone and afraid, Hagar met an angel by a spring of water. The angel told her, "Go back to Sarah and submit to her. I will give you so many descendants that you won't be able to count them." The angel also gave her a name for her son, Ishmael, which means God hears, because God had heard her pain. Then came a prophecy that still speaks to us today. He will be like a wild donkey, his hand against everyone and everyone's hand against him. He will live in conflict with all his brothers. At first, it may sound harsh, but being called a wild donkey in ancient times wasn't an insult. It meant someone who was fiercely free and independent. Ishmael's descendants would grow into a strong, proud people survivors who couldn't be controlled. But the prophecy also said they would live in constant conflict, not only with others, but among themselves. When Ishmael was born, Abraham finally had a son after years of waiting. For 13 years, Ishmael was his only child, his heir, the hope of a great nation. Abraham must have been overjoyed holding the child that proved God's promise was real. The traits given to Ishmael, independent, proud, and in conflict, are still seen in the Arab world today. But the prophecy didn't just talk about fighting with outsiders. It also warned about internal conflict, something we see clearly in divisions within Islam, like the Sunni-Shia split, and wars in places like Syria and Yemen. It all traces back to the ancient words. He will live in hostility with all his brothers. This prophecy explains much of what we see in the world right now. Years passed. Sarah was now 90 years old, and she had given up on having a child. She thought God had forgotten his promise, and that Ishmael would be Abraham's only heir. Then something amazing happened. One day, 3 mysterious visitors came to Abraham's tent. As 99-year-old Abraham welcomed them, one of them told him, "I will return next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah overheard this from inside the tent, and she laughed, not with joy, but out of disbelief. It seemed impossible. Abraham was also surprised. When God told him the promise would be fulfilled through this new son, Abraham didn't celebrate. Instead, he said, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing." This shows how much Abraham loved Ishmael. He was heartbroken, worried about what this meant for his firstborn son. But God kept his word. Sarah gave birth to a son named Isaac, which means he will laugh, a reminder of both parents' disbelief. At first, there was joy, but tension soon followed. When Isaac was being weaned, no longer breastfeeding, the family held a celebration. But Sarah saw Ishmael mocking little Isaac. In Hebrew, the word used for mocking comes from the same root as Isaac's name, showing this wasn't innocent teasing. Ishmael was challenging Isaac's role as heir, as if saying, "I'm the firstborn, I deserve the inheritance." Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She told Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son. He will never share the inheritance with my son Isaac." Abraham was devastated. He didn't want to send Ishmael away. But God told him to listen to Sarah and promised that Ishmael would still become a great nation. The next morning, Abraham gave Hagar and Ishmael some bread and water and sent them away into the desert. This moment marked the physical and spiritual separation between the two families. Abraham had to choose between his sons, a pain that still echoes today. Many Muslims see the creation of Israel in 1948 as a great tragedy. They call it the Nakba, which means catastrophe, because so many Palestinians lost their homes. This modern event mirrors Hagar and Ishmael being cast out into the wilderness. It's not just about jealousy to Ishmael. The birth of Isaac meant losing his future. He was no longer the heir. Even today, some people in Muslim countries feel like Israel's existence erases their identity, just as Ishmael felt erased when Isaac was born. Sarah's words, "He cannot inherit with my son," still echo in extreme speeches today. For example, some Iranian leaders and groups like Hamas refer to a hadith, a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, that speaks of a future battle where Muslims kill Jews. This hadith even says stones and trees will reveal hiding Jews except for one tree, the boxthorn, a plant tied to Jewish identity in some traditions. One imam in Palestine once claimed that Jews know this prophecy, which is why they're planting thousands of boxthorn trees in their settlements to hide behind them in the end times. Even though Isaac, representing Israel, and Ishmael, representing Arab nations, were separated painfully, God had a plan for both. But their paths were different, and that's what continues to shape history today. To understand the difference between Ishmael's blessing and Isaac's covenant, we first need to understand what a covenant really means. A covenant is more than a promise. It's a deep, sacred agreement, a special relationship between God and a chosen people. God made a covenant with Abraham, promising him blessings that would pass on to his children. But here's the key point. Only Isaac received that covenant, not Ishmael. Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn, so naturally, many wonder why he didn't receive the covenant. The answer? God made a divine choice, one we may not fully understand. God said clearly, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will have a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will make my covenant with him and his descendants forever." Later, God adds, "It is through Isaac that your family line will be counted." This shows a major idea in the Bible. God's choice isn't based on age, effort, or human plans. Ishmael was born through a plan made by Abraham and Sarah using Hagar, their servant. Isaac, on the other hand, was born by a miracle from two people, Sarah and Abraham, who were far too old to have children naturally. So, the spiritual covenant went to the son born through God's direct action, not through human effort. Isaac didn't just receive blessings, he was chosen to be part of God's sacred plan for the future. This idea of being the chosen people has been a central part of Jewish identity for thousands of years. It's given strength and hope during hard times, but it's also caused conflict with others who don't accept this belief. God didn't forget Ishmael. When Abraham begged God to bless his firstborn son, God listened. He said, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him and make him very fruitful. He will become the father of many nations." This promise came true dramatically. After Hagar and Ishmael were sent away, and they were near death in the desert, an angel appeared and saved them. The angel repeated the promise. "Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy. I will make him into a great nation." Isaac was chosen for a spiritual covenant to be part of God's eternal plan. Ishmael was given a worldly blessing, many descendants, land, and power. Ishmael later became the father of 12 princes, which mirrors the 12 tribes of Israel that came from Isaac's son Jacob. Many people today see this as the beginning of two great nations, both blessed, but with different roles in God's plan. The rise of the Arab people and their powerful empires, rich culture, and global influence all connect back to a promise God gave to Abraham. But the story of Abraham and his sons is told differently in the Quran and the Torah, Jewish Bible. After Isaac and Ishmael separated, the struggle between them didn't just end, it became a spiritual battle over who truly carries God's message. Islam teaches that the earlier holy books, like the Torah, were changed by humans over time. That's why the Quran presents itself as God's final and correct message. In the Bible, Abraham's greatest test is when God asks him to sacrifice his son Isaac. This moment seals the covenant between God and the Jewish people. But in Islam, the story is different. Islamic tradition says that it was Ishmael, not Isaac, who was going to be sacrificed. Why is this important? Because the son of the sacrifice is seen as the spiritual heir, the one chosen in faith and obedience. By placing Ishmael in that role, Islam gives him the main spiritual position. And since Muhammad comes from Ishmael's line, this supports the belief that Islam is the true continuation of God's message. The Quran never directly names which son was going to be sacrificed, but Muslim scholars have long taught that it was Ishmael. This creates a major difference. Judaism and Christianity continue the story through Isaac. Islam continues the story through Ishmael and teaches that Abraham and Ishmael together founded Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. This difference is more than just a story change. It's a spiritual conflict. Which version is true? Who carries the real promise of God? For centuries, this has been part of the deep division between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, each with its own claim to the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael. The question of which story is true has caused real, and sometimes violent, conflict, especially over holy places in Jerusalem. The Temple Mount is the holiest site for Jews. But on that same exact spot today stand two of Islam's most important mosques, the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's like two different histories built on top of each other. Control of the Temple Mount isn't just about land, it's about religious truth. Who controls it is seen by many as a sign of which religion is right. Under the Dome of the Rock, the Golden Domed Mosque, lies a rock called the Foundation Stone. In Jewish tradition, this rock is incredibly important. It's believed to be the center of the world, where Adam was created, where Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac, where Solomon's temple once stood, the holiest place in ancient Judaism. In Islamic tradition, the same rock is believed to be the place where the Prophet Muhammad began his night journey to heaven. So, one rock, but two different stories, each sacred, each deeply believed. Nearby is the Western Wall, also called the Wailing Wall by Jews. It's the closest spot Jews can go to pray near the ancient temple site. To Jews, it's a symbol of deep sadness and hope. To Muslims, it's known as the Al-Buraq Wall, where Muhammad's winged horse was tied before his heavenly journey. The fight over Jerusalem isn't just about land or politics. It's a battle over history and identity. Each side believes the city holds the proof of their spiritual story. That's why this one small piece of land is so deeply important and so often at the heart of the conflict. The long and painful struggle between the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael has always been about whose story is true and who has the right to the holiest place on earth. But according to the Bible, the end of this story is not hopeless. In fact, it offers a powerful message of peace. After years of being apart and not speaking, Isaac and Ishmael came together again, not for war, but to bury their father Abraham. They stood side by side in mourning, just two sons honoring their father. A small but meaningful detail is the order of their names in the Bible. Isaac and Ishmael buried him. Even though Ishmael was the older brother, he let Isaac be mentioned first. In Jewish tradition, this is seen as a sign of humility and reconciliation. Many believe this moment was a prophetic sign, a glimpse that peace is possible between their descendants, even after all the pain. While Isaac received the spiritual covenant, God never took away his blessing from Ishmael. God promised both sons greatness, and both remained children of Abraham. This gives hope that one day their descendants can find a way to live in peace. Even though the conflict still continues, there have been real steps toward peace in recent years. Several Arab nations, like the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, signed peace deals with Israel. The name of those agreements? The Abraham Accords, a powerful symbol. Instead of focusing on division, these treaties honored the shared father of Jews and Muslims, Abraham. Even beyond politics, there's a spiritual connection between the two faiths. In Judaism, Kabbalists, Jewish mystics. In Islam, Sufis, Muslim mystics. Both groups speak a very similar spiritual language. Their focus isn't on proving who is right, but on uniting with God. They both teach life is a journey of the soul, moving closer to God. God is an infinite light, and humans are sparks of that light. The key is love, a deep, burning love for God that rises above all else. When people reach this level of spiritual understanding, labels like Jewish or Muslim begin to matter less. What matters more is the shared experience of the divine. In a way, these mystics did what politicians often cannot. They met at Abraham's tomb, not to argue, but to recognize they were brothers in search of the same God. So if they share so much, why so much conflict? Because, as we've seen in this story, the choices and actions of the fathers often echo through their children. We've seen two paths, one of endless conflict, and one of slow, painful reconciliation. Now, the question is, which path will we choose going forward? The Bible gives a third option to solve the deep conflict between Isaac's and Ishmael's descendants. This solution doesn't come from politics or human leaders, but from God Himself through Jesus. In the Christian faith, Jesus is not just a prophet. He is seen as the final answer to human division. Instead of choosing Isaac's side or Ishmael's, Jesus offers a new path, creating a spiritual family where these old labels no longer matter. The Apostle Paul said, "Christ is our peace. He has made the two one and destroyed the wall of division." This means that through Jesus, both Jews and Arabs can become one family with a new identity that is no longer based on ethnicity or history. The Bible says there are two stages to this peace. 1. Now in the hearts of believers. Even today, there are Christians from both Jewish and Arab backgrounds who love and accept each other like family. They live out this peace spiritually, even while the world around them stays in conflict. 2. Later, when Jesus returns. The final and complete peace will come at Jesus' second coming, when He returns to the earth. At that time, He will bring an end to all conflict and create lasting peace for everyone. The Apostle Paul wrote that Jesus came to break down hatred and create one new humanity out of the two. This connects with ancient Bible prophecies that describe a time when the wolf will live with the lamb. They will not hurt or destroy on my holy mountain. It's a picture of perfect peace, something only God can bring. The prophet Isaiah called Jesus the Prince of Peace. That means Jesus didn't come to lead wars or gain political power. He came to bring deep, inner peace, peace that starts in the heart. For unto us a child is born, and His name shall be Prince of Peace. His peace will never end. Jesus brought a message that shocked both Jews and Muslims. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This teaching is radical. It breaks the endless cycle of hate that started with Isaac and Ishmael. Now the question is, will the descendants of Abraham choose the desert of division? Or will they meet in peace at their father's tomb, like Isaac and Ishmael once did? This third path offers real hope, not from man, but from God Himself. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found these stories interesting, get ready. Because what you've just seen is only the beginning. This is just the beginning. Islam also tells the story of Jesus, but in a very different way than Christianity. And some of the differences may surprise you. Click the video on your screen to learn how Jesus is seen in Islam compared to Christianity. Understanding these differences will help you better understand how Muslims see the world. Don't miss it. Click now.